All right, bom dia. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim. Let's go through a presentation here and start off with a short video showing the history of EMBRAER. That's quite a dramatic intro, right? All right, welcome everybody. My name is Tim Epping. I'm the Director of Customer Relations at EMBRAER Executive Jets. It's great to be here, and Max, thank you so much for the invitation. I've been requested and questioned to present you the challenges we experience as an OEM in aircraft maintenance. Not just in the market, but just also for aircraft development and certification to keep bringing new products to all of you so that you can work on those aircraft. So to do so, I'd like to explain a little bit where we come from as EMBRAER, as we're an engineering company, and we've been around since 1969, so more than 56 years already. As you saw, it all started out with the Bandai 56 years ago. EMBRAER has been built by engineers. It's truly an engineering company who've been asked to build an aircraft, which was actually the Bandai back then, and started off EMBRAER and so on. So we've been very disruptive, and I'll show you shortly after this slide to explain this here first, on how we developed from the Bandai to the KC-390, the Praetors, and how we've been disruptive. So we're existing of commercial aviation, executive aviation, defense, customer support, services and support, where I am. And nowadays, we got Eve as well. So even though it looks like they're all different kind of departments, in the background, there's a lot of cross-segmentation. For example, our design engineers for the aircraft are not just working on the Praetors or just on the KC. The same engineers who developed the E2, the E1, are exactly the same engineers who designed the Phantoms, the KC, and nowadays Eve. So on the background, we're all the same. We all work very close together. So over the past 56 years, we developed more than 40 clean sheet design aircraft. So alongside that design, it also brings in all the maintenance programs, which is relevant for all of you over here. This is a view of the last 30 years, bringing new aircraft and the aircraft which we certified. Of course, we don't only have the engineers, we got the manufacturing process, customer support, and worldwide, we got more than 20,000 people working for EMBRAER. Around more than 9,000 aircraft delivered since 1969, right? It's been a long time, and we keep developing new aircraft. So moving on to executive jets. This is how the fleet looks nowadays. We keep delivering a lot of aircraft. The demand is very, very high. As you've seen over the past few years, after COVID, it skyrocketed. For every aircraft that we deliver, we sell another 2. So we're going into 2028 with our deliveries. So we have to keep up with the demand on the parts. Last year, we delivered 130 aircraft, and our goal this year is to deliver 160 aircraft. So that has got quite an impact on the supply chain, manufacturing processes that we need to keep developing and keeping up with the market. 30 more aircraft than last year, for example, it means 60 more engines that we need to build our aircraft. And you understand the situation about the supply chain. But we're confident that we can deliver 160 aircraft, okay? So we do need to have a robust structure for all of our customers. I support a team of 10 customer account managers based strategically here in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And they support our customers. So each customer, each aircraft owner, operator has got a dedicated customer account manager. And the team supports them on a day-to-day operation. So any questions they might have, they come to them and they'll support them. But besides that, these guys also support our local MROs. So to bring new aircraft to the market, we need to have a good support structure. As said, we got 14 MROs worldwide, which are owned MROs, which are Embraer-owned MROs. I heard a discussion on the previous panel about OEM maintenance facilities competing with the authorized service centers, with the other service centers, whereas Embraer is really partnering up with their authorized service centers who are providing work for maintenance, to claim maintenance, or do work under the warranty, under the program. So we don't compete, we partner up. And that's what is very, very important for us, because here in Europe, we cannot deal with all the maintenance by ourselves. So we rely on our authorized service centers who are here as well. And they've been partnering up with us for the past 20 years already. When we started Embraer Executive Jets, these guys were already there. We have in-flight, we have ABS Jets who've been partnering up for 20 years already, building up the experience on our fleet and our products. We got Altenrhein, Natasha, I know you're here. There you are. Partnering up for 14 years already, and with the expansion of Gamma Aviation only recently to keep up with the demand in the field. Besides that, you need parts, so we need warehouses to distribute all these parts, if we have the parts, right? Because we have supply chain issues. I know we're recovering from that, but we're only as good as the last part which has not been delivered. So it always has a huge impact. Our parts, we structure and we support our repair stations to keep up with the demand. If we see a supply chain issue, we send a team to the repair stations to see what's happening, or with the suppliers to change that, right? And changing a part internally with a new part number, a new sub-tier, it takes time. Certification has a huge impact on that. Sometimes we have the solution already, but it needs to be certified. We need to do test flights to certify some of the parts. So another part of the structure is the field support representatives. As said, those team is supporting the customers and the MROs. And another important thing is training. So we put here the flight simulators on this slide, but yeah, we need training as well for our technicians, right? We partner up with Flight Safety, who's here, and CAE as well. And we also see competitors rising up like Academy 147. Good competition is always good. So if we look at the worldwide perspective of our Embraer-owned service centers, here in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, we only rely on our service center in Le Bourget. But in the US, it's a whole different structure, where we recently added 3 owned service centers in Dallas, Sanford, and Cleveland. And we doubled the slot availability at our MRO in US. Now for Europe, the strategy is a bit different. We're going to expand our Le Bourget service center in 2028 by building a new hangar. Now, as I said, we're partnering up with our service centers, or authorized service centers here in Europe, So we don't see a huge competition coming up for them, as our new hangar will also support commercial aviation as well as defense, as well as Eve. So there's enough work for everybody. We owe that to our service center network. They invested in tooling, in training with their technicians, in their facilities. So we need to give them a return of investment, and we need to provide them customers and that to fill up their slots. This is our authorized service center network throughout the world. As you see, US is a lot different, larger than we are. We have been working with 10 to 12 service centers here in EMEA. And we're very close to them. We don't have any more reason to expand. Currently, we get a lot of requests from other service centers who would like to join our network. But as said, we'd like to keep providing our authorized service center network with enough customers. If we have more service centers, it will scatter, and we cannot promise any return of investment for those companies. The distribution centers spread out through the world. Of course, parts supply chain is always a challenge. Here in Europe, we always say, the parts we need, they're always in the US. But if I talk to my colleagues in the US, they always say, the parts we need, they always come from France. So it's the part you need at the right location, at the right time, on-time delivery, and the parts quality needs to be at a good level as well, because we don't want to have any no fault found, dead on arrivals, because it impacts the customer, but also the maintenance facility, because you have the aircraft longer on ground, technicians need to stay longer. That's an issue. One thing I forgot to explain here is the AOG support, on which we're very much rely on. In the US, we got around 40 AOG trucks, which came with the new owned service centers, which we needed to have in the US. Here in Europe, the structure is a bit different. We rely on our service center network and their mobile response teams, which is working really well. If one doesn't have the availability, we'll go to the next, and we'll check who's the close by with the aircraft who needs support. These are our training centers, mainly the flight simulators. I'm missing some dots here in Europe, but last year we opened up Flight Safety International with the simulator in Farnborough. One of the Phantom sims moved from Burgess Hill to Vienna, who opened recently. And we got maintenance training for our Praetors in Paris and for the Phantoms in Vienna or Burgess Hill. So now knowing the structure, how do we as Embraer come up to a product from design to launching the product? Right, as said in the previous panel as well, you got a great difficulty in getting new technicians and training them and keeping them with the company. Now for an OEM, that's no different. Right? We got our factories based in Brazil as well as in US, and we need to keep all those engineers in-house. So for design engineering, they mainly come from Brazil, and we got more than 4,000 engineers, design engineers, system engineers, maintenance program engineering, and so on, to come up with new aircraft, but also support the aftermarket. So how does Embraer bring in new engineers? So in Brazil, we as Embraer, we support local schools. We even have our own Embraer High School, where there's around 1,200 kids going to school every day. And as Embraer, we support that, we finance that, and we push these kids in the direction of engineering. Okay, we make them ready to go to university, and we sponsor by scholarships so that they get their engineering grades in Sao Paulo or São José dos Campos, close to our facility. And during that process, they do their internship inside Embraer, and we try to get them back. So we're giving something back to the community. Not everybody in Brazil can pay for their education. So as Embraer, it's important that we invest in that, and we get a return on that by getting the engineers into Embraer. This is very successful, right? We've been, our engineering team is aging as well. I've got colleagues working at Embraer who are working at the company more than 40 years. They're about to retire, and we need to keep the knowledge inside the company and educating the new kids on developing new aircraft. So they do their training and they come back with degrees, coming up with new ideas, new designs, new patents, like on Eve. These new kids, they developed the Eve program and this actual aircraft. So looking at launching a new product into the market, what are our challenges? And mainly looking at aircraft maintenance. So to go into aircraft maintenance, let's first have a better understanding on launching a new aircraft and what comes to that before deciding to actually design a new aircraft. We need to understand the market demand, the key customers, their needs. Are they willing to have a new aircraft? Is there a market for it? Is this a good timing of the demand? And it has to fit our running projects as well. Like nowadays, we're running on Eve, and a lot of engineers are focused on that. We got deadlines to make. We want the prototype to fly pretty soon and have the certification done early 2028. So there's a huge pressure on that. We cannot deviate from that program. So adding another type or a new design at this point is tough if we decide to do that. And then the resource availability, priority of the programs. Production and support, of course, like Eve, let's use that as an example. We need a place to manufacture the aircraft. Are we willing to invest in a new facility, or do we have capability in our current facilities? And with Eve, we built a new factory because we didn't have any space anymore, so we built a new factory, investing a lot, and also investing in the aftermarket readiness, like authorized service centers. Are they ready for any new model? They need training, they need tooling, they need the parts. So do we have everything in place to get that done on time? And as said, the strategy for new designs and the launch timing. New designs, is it really necessary? Right now with executive jets, we have the Praetors, and they're very successful. We often hear like, we need more range or a larger aircraft to replace the legacy 600, 650. We do get that question a lot. Or if we take back into production the legacy 650, which we're not going to do. It's a great challenge to put everything back into production like that. That aircraft is, we're not going to manufacture anymore, unfortunately. It's a great aircraft for all of us. So aircraft design and certification process, and how does aircraft maintenance relate to that? So aircraft design, we got our designers who can design a new aircraft. Let's say a new Praetor type to replace the legacy 600, 650. I'm not saying that that's happening, but use it as an example. They go to the drawing board, and already at that moment of time, our maintenance program engineers are engaged. They're in discussion with our designers to have the best design from a maintenance perspective, and it has to fit and all come together. We don't want to design anything that parts, location, or replacement is difficult, right? So we anticipate on that. As of then, we go into the prototype, and that's actually the moment where we freeze the design process. As soon as the prototype is finished, we cannot change any of the materials, specifications. So that's a hard stop for some of the engineering. Our maintenance program engineers in parallel, which I'll show later on, will keep working after that moment as well to keep the maintenance program development ongoing. So the aircraft goes into type certification application, and one of the main thing is for the maintenance team is to actually the technical familiarization. This is the moment where our maintenance program team and engineers are actually performing all the maintenance tasks, the scheduled maintenance tasks, which have been under development. So we actually test everything on all the on the aircraft. So the aircraft moves on to compliance demonstration, where they operate the aircraft with customers and show the operation to the authorities for technical closure, issuance of the certificate, and then there's the validation by FAA or EASA. So how is maintenance taken into this aircraft design and certification process? From aircraft design to the validation, it takes around 4 to 5 years for us to develop an aircraft, which is pretty fast. I think this is mainly because of all the experience I had in the past. We know how to quickly and pretty fast create a new aircraft and certify it. So maintenance, it's running in parallel, as said, starting at the aircraft design with the certification maintenance requirements. This is where we team up with the authorities, in this case ANAC, to determine the schedule intervals, and which have to include the safety critical tasks for flight controls, landing gears, avionics, so we cannot deviate from these tasks. And our intention is to have reduced intervals. After that, it goes to the MRB, Maintenance Review Board, to the ALS. That's where everything's been written down and firmly described. We cannot change after that, and then it goes by validation. So what are our challenges during this process? Well, the CMR, that's where Embraer maintenance program team together with the authorities on to set the intervals, which we cannot deviate from, as I said. We try to reduce these intervals, which actually is not as good for the MROs because you have less maintenance to do. But for us, it's important because we want to have a lower operating cost for the customer. So there's a balance there, but reduced intervals is our goal. How do we do that? We use a methodology, MSG3, Maintenance Steering Group, which has been quite revolutionary in the light jets because it has not been done before until the Phantoms, where we implemented that on that program. Our very first aircraft where we did the MSG was in 1980 with the Brasilia. So we're very common on the MSG program. Once at the CMR, authorities have set the intervals together with our engineer, it goes to the Maintenance Review Board process. And this is actually a team existing, a working group, as you can say it, of around 10, 15 members, and we got around 20 of those groups. And those groups are specifically for ATA chapters, systems, and these groups, they determine further on the intervals and try to streamline everything. So this MRB is consisting of Embraer Maintenance Program Team, the authorities, to keep an eye if we stick to the certification and their needs. We got the suppliers, and we have the operators in those working groups. And believe it or not, those Maintenance Review Board groups, the chairman is not Embraer, it's not the suppliers, it's not ANAC, it's the operator. They're leading those groups, and they have a big say in the maintenance process and designing the process. Of course, with the advice of our maintenance program engineering team, the authorities, and the suppliers. So what are our main challenges there? Our main challenges is for everybody to align on our maintenance intervals. And this is where we have a big discussion with our suppliers. Because we designed the intervals and we ask our suppliers to team up with that. And their specific parts might not match our interval, but during this process in the MRB, we're pushing our suppliers to match up. Discussions are always ongoing in that group, which is difficult for our suppliers, right? But they have to change to match our intervals. How do they do that? We challenge them, why do you need a larger interval or a smaller interval than our maintenance program? And they might say, well, this internal part of our part has only got these amount of hours. So, okay, can we change that internal part so that you can extend your interval and match our interval? And that's difficult. But we're very well in that process with our suppliers. And we are able to make changes. So, and that's why we've been pretty successful in having just one stop per year for our aircraft, like the Phantom and the Praetors. Wait, I'm too fast. So once that all is done, then it goes into the ALS, the limitation section, where everything's been written down, and that's the actual document that everybody has got to follow throughout the process when the aircraft is being launched, after it's been validated by the authorities. Validation by the authorities is not a big challenge because the authorities have been around along the way since the beginning. So we've been partnering up. They understand our systems. One of our challenges of the Praetors, which was fully fly-by-wire, is actually to teach ANAC as well on how fly-by-wire, a full fly-by-wire aircraft is working. So we're very close with everybody, and when it comes to validation, all discussions have been done already. So after that, we need to get the market ready for the launch. Our authorized service centers, our own service centers, they need to be trained. They need to be certified, which could be a challenge here in EASA regulation because you need to have the practical training on the aircraft. We sometimes send air engineers or technicians to our factory to run the practical training in the factory. But we need to discuss also with local authorities for them to allow that to do. So that's a challenge. Thinking if I forgot anything. Is there anybody who has got a question about this? Go ahead.
I've got a question, Henry. You touched on parts.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, cheers. Yeah, you touched on supply chain parts. So it's not an Embraer relative thing, it's across the board, right? But we've been hearing about the shortage of parts and components for 4 years since COVID, but it doesn't really seem to be improving at a level that it should do. What is Embraer's strategy for the next 5 years, and what is the root cause today of the issues that are faced on stock?
Yeah, fair question, right? We struggle with that with our teams every day on parts. What Embraer is doing, well, we're investing in more parts. So we place orders at our suppliers. But placing the orders doesn't mean that the supplier is going to work harder or work differently. So we push for that. We send teams on site to those suppliers to see what can be changed. And if they can't change, we're looking for new suppliers. We're changing vendors, right? To give you an example, PPG on the windshields, they're very much just one company creating windshields. That's a problem for the market. So we are looking into alternatives for situations like that. Problem is to have a new supplier, a new parts approved, is that they need to go to certification. And for some, we need to do flight testing, and well, as you see, that needs to fit in the program of those engineers. Because for certification of new parts, we need to draw the engineers off the new developments to put on the aftermarket as well. So that's our challenge. But yeah, if we do see a change from Embraer perspective, positively. Of course, there's always a part that you're going to need is we're not going to have. But what I also see is that the supply chain issue is like a generic issue, and it's very easy to say, it's a supply chain issue. But nowadays, if we got a reliability issue on a part, it's not a supply chain issue. It's a reliability issue, which we had before COVID, for example, right? So it's a generic thing to say things are not running well with parts, but it's not all just supply chain issue. It could be reliability issue, obsolescence of parts, other than related during COVID or right after.
With aeroplanes that are coming out of warranty, it's quite difficult for the other MROs to access Embraer and their facilities. We own a Legacy 600, and we've got several Phantoms coming out of warranty. Can you improve the interface for us? You know, it's hard for us to liaise if we don't go through the existing structure of your support network.
Yeah.
It's very hard for us to access that. We tend to buy from the States as opposed to buying from Europe, but we really want to buy it within Europe.
Yeah, good question. Specifically with an aging fleet and aircraft getting out of warranty, and we keep delivering new aircraft. So the demand, and we do need companies other than our authorized service centers to support the fleet because the fleet is getting too large. Our authorized service center network has been specifically supported by our MRO team, while as third-party MROs, as we call it, are supported by my team, to be honest. And we can support you. We can set up an account and to provide you access. Because actually, you're just like a customer. You're buying parts and you're buying services. So we're open for that. If there's any difficulties with that, I'd like to understand better.
And will you allow access to some of your vendors for that? Because again, we've got parts that aren't available immediately that seem to be available within the network, the warranty network, but isn't available on the third-party network.
Yeah, we have our own parts, right? And sometimes we also see parts just readily available in the market. And that's also the struggle for our teams. Like, hey, EMBRAER, you don't have the part, but we have it on the market. Pricing might be different, and we'll negotiate with the teams and with the owner if they're willing to take that part, yes or no. For you, the question was to get parts from the market, right?
Yeah, we struggle just to interface with EMBRAER, with aeroplanes. They've been on a warranty program, a lot of the Phenom 300s. They're now coming off. They're looking for the third-party MROs to support them rather than go within the existing network. But we have difficulty interfacing with EMBRAER to do that, yeah?
Interface with me. We can have a chat later on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Max, for the invitation. It's been a pleasure. I'll be around all day so we can have some more discussion. Looking forward to the next panels here. I'd like to introduce one of our partners here on stage, which is Natasha, who's the leader of Altenrhein AAL. So, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Natasha Rode. I am the Managing Director and Accountable Manager of Altenrhein Aviation and Egli Paint. Start with the presentation. They gave me a clicker with 2 buttons. How easy it is. So this is not Photoshop. This is what view you can have actually from our facility. I have to be careful what I say because I'm heavily wired here. So, just a short presentation of our company, what we do. Next year will be 100 years old. Big steps in our history is a flying boat, the DOX from Dornier, which was launched at our facility. We also helped Learjet to build their wing. So we have some big steps. We are based in East Switzerland. We can walk to Austria. And if you do a bit of training, you can swim to Germany. So we have been in many hands, and we had many names. But for the last 3 years, we are part of the Atlas Group with the headquarters in Bremen. So we have a mother company in Bremen and a sister company in Augsburg. All 3 facilities are EMBRAER authorized service centers. We also are in Altenrhein, a Gulfstream authorized service center. We specialize in mid-size cabin. We do anything from AOG. We have our own dedicated AOG team. But as the aircrafts which we maintain are getting older, especially on the Gulfstream side, we specialize in heavy maintenance. Together with our partner, Aerovisto, we have started a project called Swiss Aviation Plaza. Because by Altenrhein buying Egli Paint last year, we have a unique position where we can do maintenance, we can paint the aircraft fully, and we can do full interior with Aerovisto So we will welcome you soon to our new website called Swiss Aviation Plaza. We, of course, also do various modifications. We work with GoGo, and as some items get obsolete, we recently even did a Rosen map upgrade on a G200. So Max and I, we go way back. We've already done some articles about PPIs. The movement really with the PPI started way before actually the Ukrainian war. It picked up now. It's also somehow politically connected. I call him Uncle Donald. He's always an interesting person to read the news in the morning, but he did allow some tax reforms in the States to bring aircraft. So we had in the last years, an exodus of aircraft leaving the European market to the States. And everybody wants a PPI. So I found some quotes on internet which describe why should people do a PPI. And we have challenges, of course, mostly because the seller has a different interest than the buyer. So the sellers would prefer to sell you a cat in the sack, and that's it. The buyer, of course, we always recommend, let's have a look at the aircraft. And usually, as you know, the PPIs, we don't recommend, or even the brokers don't recommend, that the PPI happens in a facility where your aircraft has been always maintained. So it's always good to have somebody else to have a look at the aircraft. So 2 challenges. Seller doesn't want a PPI or wants it with the facility he knows the best, and the buyer wants as extensive PPI as possible and in an independent facility. This is a long quote you guys can read. I just like the contents of the middle sentence, like, what's a PPI? It's reading between the lines and between the rivets. Because, as we said, the major part of a PPI is paperwork. And we, as MRO, subcontract this to a specialized company. They know what to do. They sit in our facility for 5 days usually, surrounded by boxes and boxes of papers, and they know what they are doing. Our engineers, they know where to look. And us being such old company, we have a lot of people. We have engineers actually certifying staff who work 20, 24 years now on a G200, for example. They know every rivet in that aircraft. And I think this is the experience you need and the knowledge that we have that we can say, we know where to look. So, Max put me in front of a coffee break, so I will not hold you long here, but it's a lot of points here. But we've mentioned a lot already. Paperwork, I will not say again, it's important. The slots, so usually it already starts with the broker who calls us and say, Natasha, I need a PPI. I call it yesterday, today, but latest tomorrow. The answer is like in my head already. Because they always request the slots for yesterday. It never happens even in the next week because the process, the sale process has to take part and everything. They have to sign the LOI. Then they have to finally agree on the scope of what we are doing, where they are going. And we all always laugh on the planning meetings. Oh, PPI, let's postpone it for a week. Let's postpone it for a week. Because exactly that's how it happens. Everybody wants it for yesterday, but it will happen in a month, maybe in 2. So why to do it with an authorized service center? Always, I think, the best idea to have the PPI report coming from an authorized service center than from an independent MRO. And independent MROs tend to do all the aircrafts they can, whilst we specialize, let's say, in 2 or 3 type of aircrafts. So I think we know them better. So one of the things to check on the paperwork, and I will give you a good example, what we had very recently in our facility, the STCs. Everybody for sure forgot already about the ADSB, it was so long ago. But we had a customer who was selling an aircraft to a Brazilian. And the aircraft had, of course, ADSB installed with an EASA STC, with an FAA validation of the STC. But then it came out in the process when he wanted to register this aircraft in Brazil that this STC is not approved by ANAC. And of course, then what do we do? Do we remove it? Do we install a new one? And these are all things which normally would come up in a PPI way ahead. In this case, the PPI was not really required because the aircraft was with us for a major maintenance. So, of course, all the history of the aircraft and some actually undocumented work. So we also had last year a case where we have received an aircraft for a PPI, and during the doc review, it came out that the last sale was, I would say, a bit dodgy because there was no documentation in all these boxes that we received that this aircraft was ever painted or that the whole interior was done. So there was no way about it. We worked with QCM on the project, and we basically had to repaint it and and Aerovisto had to redo the whole interior. And some people are smart and they paint a white aircraft white so you wouldn't know. But in this case, it was like going from red to green. So the whole internet had the history of this aircraft being painted. So this is a good example why it's quite good to have a look at the paperwork and see what you get versus what is on the paper. Case that we have currently ongoing in our facility is an aircraft which was sold from Spanish company to, let's say, Middle East company, and then another sale took place and the aircraft came to us, not even for PPI, but for a check. And the third owner sort of is like, what, there is a rental engine on the aircraft? We didn't know. So now the history of how the sale was taking place, the PPIs and whatever, is like that the people didn't even realize that they were flying with a Pratt & Whitney rental engine. All this interesting, and I think I'm trying to convince you that PPI is great essence. So then the last thing is, I have to press the button again. How much does it cost? For sure, everybody would like to know. It's about money. So we offer actually different packages. We can do, of course, a tailor-made PPI. But usually we have a list and a template, and everybody can mark. They can say, OK, I want to have the basic PPI, which is the most common one for 10 working days. And maybe I add 1 or 2 other items from the advanced or prime PPI prime. So I think this is not a lot of money to be spent to save you a lot of money. And the last question, why in Switzerland? Because we're neutral. No. So there are a lot of tax advantages and VAT-free transaction. In short, we always recommend, and we have a partner company, a legal firm in Zurich, who specializes in transactions. They will advise you about every single detail that you don't follow knows, but it is very simple. The aircraft comes to us for a PPI. It's part of a maintenance task. Therefore, the aircraft is exempted from any customs. And most of the countries do 1 month. Switzerland do 1 year. And in various cases where we had change of ownership, whatever, there was no problem to extend it over a year. I'm not saying that the PPI will take that long, but a PPI usually takes place. Then the aircraft remains at our facility at least for a week or two till the SPA, so the sales purchase agreement, is finalized. Sometimes it even can take up to a month, depends on the parties. Because then what happens is that we are doing in 99.9% a registration change. So if you go from, let's say, EASA to FAA on an EMBRAER, you have to get an SB. So it's a long process. You will be definitely with the process exceeding the 30 days, which most of the countries do. But as long as there is a maintenance task, and of course there's a rectification of whatever is found, there is no problem to do it in Switzerland, more or less stress-free and tax-free. So this is from me. I managed exactly on time. You can get your caffeine shot now. Here you go, our contacts. I'm sure the presentation will be available to you, and hope to see you in Switzerland. Thank you very much.